What up guys, my name is Sarthe, welcome back to the channel, and today I'm going to break down everything I can, everything I've tested and learned, and pretty much everything that I can give you for Rogue moving into TBC, and also mainly talking about how the beta is working in the beta client right now. Now, in the current iteration of the beta client, there's quite a few mechanics for rogues that are actually broken. Rogues are broken right now, so you probably know, or you probably have seen, that rogues are absolutely S tier all the way throughout the entire expansion in arenas, in PvP. We may not be the best in PvE, of course, but we are absolutely insane in PvP, but a lot of our mechanics are actually hard broken right now. So today I'm going to kind of point things out. I'm also going to give you information on like how Rogue is performing in PvE as well. Currently, we're not at level 70 yet, of course. And then really quickly, before I dive in, I do want to mention that Blizzard is taking bug reports, right? So a lot of these things hopefully will be bugs and aren't ways that Blizzard wants the game to work differently than it did work all the way back in TBC and of course on private servers. So these mechanics are not working correctly. So please like, share this video. If you're experiencing anything also, please let me know in the comments, because the more kind of like views we can get on this, the more we can talk to Blizzard. Also report them in game and let them know that these things aren't the way it's supposed to be working. Okay, with that being said, let's dive right in. Okay, so first things first, Rogue. All right, obviously I'm in the beta. I'm only level 65 right now, so I'm not leveling at an insane pace. I'm kind of just taking it a little bit slow and enjoying it. But first, I want to tell you guys kind of like your leveling spec. Now, I only have a mace, not a really good sword, so I'm currently using a mace spec, but pretty much let me just dive into the leveling spec. You're going to want to get improved Sinister Strike. Gouge, always useful for PvP and PvE situations. Slice and Dice moves over into combat instead of assassination. Precision, of course, for that hit. Then you can decide if you want to go into Deflection into Riposte. Now, this is your actual best leveling spec, to go Deflection into Riposte, but there's a ton of PvP going on, especially if you're on a PvP server, so I like to get Imp Sprint. Then, of course, you go into your dual wield specialization. You do not want to be daggers for leveling. It is going to be a lot harder than it will be for you to use pretty much anything else, because you can't really get behind things. So you're not going to want to go mutilate spec or something like that. You're not wanting to go backstab, combat daggers. So for leveling, you're most likely going to want to be swords. If you have a mace, also you can do that like I'm doing. And then you're either going to sword specialization or mace specialization. Blade flurry, amazing. Weapon expertise changes from weapon skill for specifics. Like it doesn't give your weapon skill to maces, obviously, or like fists. Now it's expertise. It's baseline 10 expertise for everything. Aggression, always useful. The thing that you don't get is vitality if you're going for riposte. This is not the most necessary. It gives you 2% agility, 4% extra stamina. So if you're going for riposte, that's kind of what you take away from. Then you move into adrenaline rush. Combat potency gives you a 20% chance on your offhand swings to give you 15 energy. This is amazing. And then surprise attacks all the way here at the bottom. Move on into the assassination tree. Now you're going to want to go 5 of 5 malice. Imp crit is amazing. And I personally go with remorseless attacks because I like the extra 40% chance to crit on my next ability. It's awesome for leveling and I would highly suggest it, but totally something that's a personal preference. You can either go into murder here or into imp eviscerate. Totally personal preference here. I find this to be awesome for leveling and grinding, and also really good in dungeons. Then you'll go into ruthlessness, relentless strikes, and move into lethality, and then into your poisons. You can level as SHADOWSTEP Hemo, where your damage is significantly weaker and it's a lot harder to kill things. You're still extremely geared, so early on you're blowing up everything. Even at 65, I kill mobs in like 2 to 3 seconds. It's just going to be a lot slower than combat. Your DPS is a lot worse, but you're a lot better at world PvP. So if you want to level slower, but you want a PvP, I would go with a SHADOWSTEP. Basically, your standard PvP build, which I can link in the description if you want. Also, if you're looking for all of your builds for PvP, I would highly recommend checking out Silent Shadows, the website, or the Rogue Discord for TBC. Just check those out. It'll be an insane resource for you. Now, the next thing I want to mention really quickly before we dive in, rogue DPS. There's a lot of talk about how rogue DPS is not that great in PvE in TBC. Now, this is something that doesn't actually affect you at all early on, because you're not getting nerfed. You're actually getting kind of stronger early on. So if you go into your dungeon cleave groups, your dungeon groups, you are so much stronger than most of the DPS classes. Warlocks aren't really going to beat you. They're going to be multi-dotting things, but you kill things so quickly, especially if you run in with world buffs. Blade Flurry is a 2-minute CD. You're not as strong as a warrior still. Warriors and warrior cleave groups are going to destroy dungeons early on. It's not really until they get seed that like warlocks really shine, and that's where their damage just hard spikes. So you're actually not necessarily gimped, you just don't get ridiculously stronger like most of the other classes later on. So right away, you're actually going to be one of the strongest DPSs in dungeons. Yes, that is a fact. With world buffs, especially, that will help you up to level 63. You're going to be absolutely destroying dungeons. And even at level 65, we don't have damage meters right now, but when you pop your cooldowns, you can solo groups of 3 mobs in any dungeon, even like level 66, 67 mobs, pretty easily actually, as long as your evasion is popped and you don't get unlucky with that. So your DPS is going to be pretty great leveling. So you're not going to have any struggles leveling. At level 70, you may see people struggling to get into like dungeon groups and heroic groups. That's mainly because a lot of spell cleave is kind of the fancy, and we'll see how DPS matches up. But really, when Seed of Corruption comes in, that's where warlocks hugely shine, and you can't really keep up with that. But early on, you're going to be destroying. Warriors are actually an all warrior group. Alondo did ramparts in 7 minutes. So normal groups are doing ramparts in like 15 to 25 minutes. Boosted characters are taking forever to do it. But in our gear, you're like blowing it up. A full warrior group did it in 7 minutes. So melee cleave will absolutely be the strongest right out the gate, right at the beginning, especially because we don't have batching and you can just destroy everything. Boom, now that that's out of the way, what's next? Little things you need to know. Your Thistle Tea will start at 60 energy now in TBC at level 60, and then drop by 2 every level to bring it all the way down to 40 energy at level 70. So in those 10 levels, each level it will go down by 2, and then your Renatakis will start at 60 energy again, and then will go down by 4 every level, bringing it down to 20 energy at level 70. So it's pretty much a completely useless trinket there. Still useful while leveling, but will be pretty useless at level 70. Thistle Tea still a pretty useful actual consumable, so make sure you're doing that. One other thing to know, you're always going to want to use haste potions in the live client. This is going to be really expensive, but it's something that you're going to need to do if you're going to be raiding. So I would suggest macroing haste potion onto something like Blade Flurry for PvE. You don't really need to. It just makes it all 1 cooldown. I have it on my trinkets because my trinkets are 2-minute cooldowns. So when you Blade Flurry, you trinket and you haste potion every time. It just is massive and you blow up everything like it's nothing. So this is your favorite consumable to be using on repeat. We don't have world buffs anymore. This is your go-to all the time. Next, dungeon grinding for gold farming, where you can get chests as well as you can get things like mining or herbing nodes. This is absolutely going to be a thing for rogues. So you can go down into the places like the Ring of Observance and go into all of these dungeons, Mana Tomb, Sarthe, stuff like that. And you can farm chests in here. You can farm nodes, so mining nodes. You can farm herbs in here. There are going to be some tricky ones where you kind of want to distract or pick and vanish, things like that, but usually you can get pretty much everything. You can solo a lot of the pulls if there's mobs in the way of the nodes. So this is going to be one of the best gold farms, if not the best gold farm for rogues, because there's no real competition out in the world. And that's going to be the big struggle for farming gold for a lot of people, because there's a 68 boost or 58 boost, and let's be real, there's going to be a ton of bots. we just know how Blizzard works. Even with the layers, it's going to be pretty crazy out in the world. So this is something exclusive sort of to rogues. Druids can do it as well. They don't have as good of stealth, and they don't have things like sap, but druids can totally pull it off as well. But rogues have a better advantage slightly for doing these. So your stealth farms, absolutely in the game, amazing. Two more things before I talk about how rogues are broken. Spell power rogues. This was a thing back in TBC, and it was a thing on private servers. So stacking spell power to increase the damage of some on-hit weapons as well as your poisons was a thing in TBC, kind of a meme spec, but it's fun to mess around with. This is not a thing in the TBC Live client or the TBC Beta client. Doesn't matter how much spell power you stack, it will not affect your poisons. And if you have a weapon that has a proc that does spell damage, it won't actually do anything for that. Although spell damage is giving 100% a 1-to-1 coefficient on any heals on any of these items. So things like Skullflame Shield or Ancient Hikari Manslayer, if it has a heal proc on it, you'll get 100% of that healing from it. But obviously we can't use axes, so don't worry about that as a rogue. Just know, spell power rogue, not in the game. And then the last thing, something that's really, really cool for rogues, something that's actually quite amazing, is that Trinket Swapping is 100% doable now in this client. The second you vanish, the split second you vanish, you are out of combat. So you can actually, if you wanted to, macro in some trinkets into a vanish and it will do it all by itself. We don't have actual item rack right now, so we can't like queue some of our trinket swaps, but you can macro them together, or you could click them right as you vanish. And you can do this on boss fights. So you can use an on-use trinket right at the beginning of the boss fight and then do a vanish, boom, instantly swap to your two passive trinkets. You could go on-use trinket into on-use trinket on like major boss fights later in the game if they don't change this. One thing though, as we creep over, now we're getting to the broken side of rogues. When you vanish, your stealth abilities are actually not useful for pretty much a full GCD. Now this is really bad. It's a thing in Classic that doesn't really change too many encounters, but it's a thing that really does hurt encounters in TBC. So in arenas, you used to be able to instantly SHADOWSTEP Vanish Sap in a split second if you need to on like your focus target or an off target, anything like that. Now you can't do that. You can SHADOWSTEP Vanish and it takes almost a whole second for you to be able to even sap. You can get knocked out of stealth, or it's just going to take some time. It gives people time to react to things, so you can't vanish react to things instantly. It is hopefully a bug and not a mechanic that Blizzard wants to move on with. On to poisons for a quick second. Why not? Poisons are breaking CC. So if you have a poison proc, it is breaking CC. If you're using an instant poison and you do a sap and then you do a cheap shot or an exposed armor or something like that, and it procs that instant poison or maybe even a weapon proc, it will break your CC, which is not how it's supposed to work. It's not how it works usually, because a lot of times you're swapping poisons quite often, mainly with your offhand, and I guess that's what we'll step right into. But this is not how it's supposed to work. So if you're sapping someone, going into a cheap shot, and a poison proc happens, it is breaking the CC, and that is not a good. Now, like I mentioned with offhand weapons, if you don't know, in 2v2 or in all arenas, swapping your offhands and using abilities like Shiv, which is new now, which will automatically apply your poison, switching your offhand and swapping different poisons on for different fights and middle of fights is a huge mechanic that rogues will be utilizing in TBC. When you do this, when you swap your offhand, it does reset a GCD. It fully resets a GCD right then. So if you do it like randomly, it will pretty much just leave you not able to do any abilities right away. Here is how you get around that. You have to swap your offhands inside of a GCD. So use an ability, swap your offhand. every time that's how you're going to want to do it. And then if you have another ability ready to be used, if you have enough energy especially, there's going to be pretty much no downtime between you moving on to using your next ability. And then if you don't, there's like a slight delay, it seems, on your next auto attack, but not nearly as bad as losing out that full GCD. It's a very, very slight delay. So if you're swapping offhands, always make sure you do this within a GCD. Swap offhands within a GCD and you'll be golden. That is not necessarily a broken mechanic. That's just something I should bring up to you guys. With that note, something that's also not really broken, SAP and diminishing returns. So CC diminishing returns are set at a 15-second static window. This is awesome for rogues. So your DRs, your first sap into your second sap, and then you can blind, wait 15 seconds and your DR is going to be gone, right? This is static too, so it stays at that exact window, so you don't have to predict things. Gladius, when it does come into the game, will have that set up, so you'll be able to track your DRs just on screen. You won't have to do it yourselves. Some private servers, I believe, have 18-second windows. I think most of them have 18-second windows. So 15 seconds does give rogues a little bit more of an advantage and control over CC than you do on private servers, which is meaning we could be buffed. This might be changed. Just be aware, this might be changed. And then I know some realms also have like a variable timer from 14 to 18 seconds. That just makes play a little bit off. There's a little bit more RNG involved. And you don't want that. You want to be able to perfectly time like a step sap. As I talk about that, of course, SHADOWSTEP. I'm sure you guys have heard, or if you've played it as SHADOWSTEP in the beta, it is hard broken right now. So SHADOWSTEP will sometimes put you in the perfect position, but a lot of the times it'll put you, 1, out of range of your target, 2, facing the random other direction of your target, so you can't use abilities until you turn around. So it will hard scuff you in quite a few situations. SHADOWSTEP is hard broken right now on where it places you, and hopefully Blizzard fixes this. They have to fix this because it is absolutely something that's broken. So this is one that if you guys see, or if you have the beta, please report. SHADOWSTEP is broken. Sometimes it'll have you facing the right direction. I found that sometimes if I'm facing directly away from my target, it will put me facing the target. Sometimes it'll also put you closer to the target, and sometimes it'll put you out of range of actual abilities. So SHADOWSTEP, hard broken ability right now. One of the coolest abilities in the entire game, absolutely, but it is not working for rogues right now. Now, a couple last things, and these are other things that are kind of broken in the game. Fully broken, actually. This is something that was implemented on the PTR, and if you guys have been following me, you know I tested this out with Bobka quite a bit when we lost the GCDs. But for rogues, if you stun or incapacitate a target, it actually takes a whole GCD after the stun breaks for them to be able to use any abilities. So this means you can cheap shot, let the cheap shot break, and then gouge, and then let the gouge break, and then kidney, and they can't do anything. They're literally not able to use abilities. So in Classic, the second cheap shot breaks, you're able to blind. If they let you out of CC, you can blind them, you can reset the fight, you can win it unless they lap, right? In TBC right now, you can cheap shot, wait almost a full GCD after it breaks, and gouge before they can blind, vanish, gouge, do anything. There's no time for anyone to be able to react. They can't do anything. This is hard broken as well. It is obviously a buff on rogues, but this should not be in the game. It kind of is a buff to any class that can stun. Your CCs are slightly longer than they should be. With that little thing being broken, also another thing that is a mechanic that's actually in Classic but shouldn't be in TBC, and that is that when you change targets, you lose combo points. Now in TBC, you're supposed to be able to hold combo points for very specific reasons. So sometimes you want to hold combo points on the enemy healer and still be basically auto attacking another target, and then step kidney shot the healer. Sometimes you want to hold for a deadly throw so you can just ranged interrupt. So So you need to hold these combo points, but also be able to do other things. You need to focus target blind or blind another target. This shouldn't be dropping your combo points. You need to kick another target. This shouldn't be dropping your combo points. But it is 100% dropping your combo points now on the beta. Please report this because it will be so bad for rogues if this goes to live. This is not how it's supposed to work. So please report this and share this. We need to be able to hold combo points as we change targets, as long as we don't use an ability that builds combo points on that new target. Then mages actually have this little sneaky effect that right after a blink, they are immune to stuns. Not incapacitate effects, so you can still sap them or gouge them, but right after a blink, they are immune to stuns. This is still in the game from Classic, so it's fine. It was in the game in Classic, but it's more of a bad thing in TBC because they can Nova you and blink, and usually you will SHADOWSTEP Kidney right out of it. You'll SHADOWSTEP Kidney right out of the Nova. You're obviously still Nova'd, it's fine, but they can't go anywhere. If you do that now, it's a waste of your kidney. Your kidney goes on cooldown. They're immune to it. Also, if you're waiting for a blink and you cheap shot right into the blink, it will waste your cheap shot. You'll be brought out of stealth. They're going to be immune to it. Doesn't do anything. So there's a full like second or a GCD where rogues or mages have that little buff after they blink, and it makes them immune to stuns, which blink should break stuns, not make them fully immune to stuns. But rogues kind of have a similar mechanic on live. On live, when you use sprint, you kind of get immune for that whole like first GCD. So if you use sprint, you can't get Nova'd right in that first CD or GCD. But on the beta realms, the second you use sprint and the second they use Nova, if you use them together, you do still get stunned or frozen. So they fixed it for rogues, but didn't fix it for mages. This is something that also should be fixed. Hopefully it is. It's not like too crazy, but it definitely buffs mages and it seems a little bit OP. You're gonna have to then wait for your step. And then the last things I want to mention, a couple quick things. One, a quality of life thing is that poisons are now 1 hour long and you can click them off. This is awesome because if you get into a dungeon group and then you have a shaman, you can click off your main hand poison for your Wind Fury. Boom, we can finally do that. Flares are on a little bit of a heartbeat sensor, so you can SHADOWSTEP sap into a flare or SHADOWSTEP cheap shot open into a flare. So if like a hunter's sitting in flare, you can step into it and get them. That also means things like Hellfire and such. Blizzard is pretty much an instant tick now because they took away the GCD. Blizzard ticks happen way faster, so mages are a lot better at getting you out of stealth. If you get hit in the Blizzard, you don't really have that time to get out. You kind of can, but it's like instant, right? If they hit you in that Rake 1 Blizzard, you're broken out of stealth. A crazy thing though, actually in this interaction, if the mage Blizzarded you, you're out of stealth on your screen first before they can actually see you out of stealth. So you're actually broken out of stealth before they can actually see you. I don't know why this is happening this way. If you have a third person sitting there as like a bystander, you can also see the rogue being broken out of stealth before the mage can. So it's a crazy weird interaction, but the rogue is broken out of stealth before the mage that blizzarded him can see him. And if you're just like a third person and you're seeing, you also see the rogue broken out of stealth before the mage can see him. You can see the timers here with my friends typing 1 whenever they're broken out of stealth and when they can see him. Also, we were calling it out in Discord, and then me being able to do it also, and then testing when I was able to get out of stealth or when I was able to see a rogue broken out of stealth. That's just like a weird mechanic that I don't think should be in the game. And that's pretty much it. That's all I wanted to cover. This was actually a lot longer than I anticipated because we kind of dove into everything I could think about right now. As more things get tested, as I find out more things then I will be trying to share all of the information with you guys. But currently, rogues are broken. Rogues are broken. So many mechanics are not working the way they should. Some things are a little bit buffed. A lot of things are a little bit scuffed. And let me know if there's other things that you guys have tested, you guys have found out that are broken in the game that we can report. And also, please let me know in the comments if you want me to test anything else. Hopefully we get these things fixed, so report them yourself. This is a longer video than I wanted it to be, but we really need to fix how rogues work in the beta so that we can just go in and crush it. Thanks for watching, guys. Make sure to hit that subscribe button for more, and I'll see you all on the next one.